Good morning and God bless. Thank you indeed for this wonderful life. Let us get right to it, man. Pattern possession. What is driving your daily loop? You ain't stuck because of discipline. You're stuck because a pattern got mistaken for your personality. And now it's wearing your name. Warning. This doctrine exposes the soul level system underneath your routine. How often do we talk about routines? Side effects include ego exorcism, rhythm disruption, and a violent rejection of your default schedule. Emotional nausea from memory triggered pattern exposure, a violent urge to cancel plans and rewire your day, and real-time clarity that makes comfort feel like a scam. There's a lot of side effects. Be careful how heavy you dose. Welcome to Raw for Epoch 2, day 149. Today we decode the loop you didn't write, but still obey. This is pattern possession. Let's get right into our concept overview. You don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the rhythm of your patterns. And most of your patterns, you did not create them. You inherited them. It's where the cliche super chats tell you the matrix. But you inherit them from school, from survival, from culture, from mimicry. They were installed without permission and without pause. And then you built a life around them. But here's the deeper truth. We weren't just born to break patterns, we were born to author new ones. Rooted in source, sovereign by design, and synchronized to the rhythm of the infinite, which is God, creator, and universe. Here's what you learn. Why most of your traits are actually subconscious loops that never got audited. How social systems prime us to obey structure, not spirit. Why routine isn't always discipline, it's often possession with good PR. How to rewire soul patterns by syncing them with remembrance and authorship. And how to activate God-coded rhythms that attract, scale, and sustain real creation. I'm slightly parched. Excuse me for a moment. We're going to get into our visual metaphor. May as well check on that chat real quick. I just hopped out of a live. Was inspired by it. I've been taking notes, processing information, and I'll leave it at that. Here's our visual metaphor for the day. You ever leave your house and accidentally drive to the wrong place? Like you meant to go somewhere new, but your car turned toward work, the store, the gym, the usual? That is possession. Literally, my wife the other day, we're going to the store. She busted her right to go to the train station. I'm like, yo, where you going? She said, oh, I felt like I was just going to work. You were behind the wheel, but the pattern had the GPS. And you didn't even notice until the driveway showed up. Now zoom out. What else are you arriving at by accident? What are you still pulling up to that your soul already moved on from? Let's get into my personal perspective. This is really one of my favorite topics. Routine, pattern possession, the loops. Like you, like many of us, I've lived in loops that I didn't author. There were seasons I thought I was leading my life when really I was just obeying a pattern I downloaded at like age 11. Overachiever, pleaser, performer, fixer. None of it was strategic. None of it was strategy. It was emotional survival with a productivity filter. Now, when I started Do You Rules, I had to confront it. My grind was essentially a trauma reflex. My routine was a disguise. And the thing I was scaling was a rhythm that had never been submitted to the spirit. That's when I stopped asking, what do I want to build? And I started asking, what is doing the building inside of me? Massive difference. Subtle, but leads to completely different paths. Let's zoom out a little bit wider. You think the 9 to 5 is just a job, and I love the 9 to 5. But it's a schedule system designed after factory rhythms. I didn't know that. I had to learn that. Bells, transitions, metrics, structure. I'm not here to criticize it. I'm just here to reveal that most of us never stopped to ask if we ever authored a rhythm of our own. You see, we don't just live in society, we get pattern imprinted by it. Our soul gets synced to output, efficiency, ROI, and my personal favorite, comfort. We pattern around survival, never realizing we're scaling someone else's pattern for our own soul. Like, look, you don't need a conspiracy theory. You just need a calendar audit. Because if you didn't build the pattern, then who's really living your life? Now, here's where it hit me mad hard, like all the way in the soul. The subscribers, the setup, the mic, the mixer, the monetization, none of it technically makes me a podcaster. None of it makes me an entrepreneur. None of it makes me Do You Rules and Cliche Jeff. The pattern makes me that. The pattern of creation, reflection, conscious refinement, contemplation, self-teaching, autodidactism, love that word, system building, truth speaking, daily movement from identity to execution. The pattern preceded the result. And the wildest part, that pattern is God. God just don't bless patterns. God is the pattern, seeking himself through you. When you move with rhythm, remembrance, and submission, God finds God. But if you submit your soul's rhythm to somebody else's loop, you've let their God pattern outrank yours. So yeah, the pyramid is real. And every day you either rise to the top of your own authorship or die at the bottom of somebody else's loop. It's deeper than behavior. It's about divine recursion. We're going to get into our Black Book insert for the day. But I wanted to pause for a moment of contemplation and reflection here. If you could submit yourself to your soul and the spirit of who you are and the essence of God, the image creator, the source, the light. We're going to talk about this in an episode that I scripted this morning. But I'm reading a book, Pistols. I forget, I can't, it's going to elude me. But it's the story, it's a Gnostic story of Mary Magdalene and Jesus and his disciples, some of the words. So I've gotten into a practice now where I start to study books. I read usually for 30 minutes. What I'm doing now is I'm taking 20 minutes to read, and then the last 10 minutes, I'm focusing on a paragraph or a line. I write it down, I reflect, and I contemplate on it. Essentially, what that's helping me do is build the rhythm of my own interpretation. I think that's significant. It's okay to process as much information and wisdom as we can. How you apply it to yourself and how you word it for yourself, I think is significant. And that scales. That scales for your soul. That scales for your spirit. That scales for your career. That scales for your relationship. That scales in relationship like to yourself, relationship to God, relationship to your significant others, relationship to your family, relationship to your network of people, your relationship to life. And in short, what was written was the elevation of Jesus into the light. And he just kept going and going and elevating until the disciples couldn't see him anymore. And he rose so deep into the light that the light created darkness for the people watching him. Imagine that. Imagine that. And I'm talking, just immerse yourself in the possibility, right? There's light everywhere. Whose light are you immersing yourself in? Is it your own light? At some point, sometimes the light gets so bright, we seek darkness. That's fear. We get so scared of ourselves. We get so scared that we could actually be who we said we're going to be. It is scary because it comes with repercussions and consequences. That's why we have a consequences section for the show. Okay. So when he returns, he being Jesus, he speaks to his disciples and he essentially says, I returned from the light that precedes all light. It's all within us. It's all you. It's all us. And my interpretation, and really what I just spoke to you was my interpretation, which is the expansion of light from light that preceded the light, which is God, right? That everything and everyone is God in fragments, little micro fragments. Free will, the power of creation, the ability to create your own routine, rhythm, pattern, habit, which creates what? How you feel about yourself, which means what? That's your soul. And so when you lock in on an apex priority, when you are spiritually interoperable, when you only accept certain standards and protocols for yourself, when you have an agenda that you stick to, and that's what essentially you are praying on, that's why I emphasize this. It's not just, I had a great meditation and a prayer this morning. I felt like I was there for 2 minutes and 20 minutes passed. It's just, the point being, just because I was there for 20 minutes, and the significance is you do it every day for 20 minutes. It's the power of repetition, right? So 20 over 20 over 20 over 20. I have a streak of I don't know how many days. But I pray intentionally every day. And then I believe as I'm moving, I'm continuing to pray. When you act out in your relationships, when you act out towards life, the reality in front of you, that's you enacting prayer, my G. I don't mean like, and kneel down, light a candle. I'm talking about that you have thought. Thought precedes emotion. Emotion, thought, behavior. You act out in a certain way and you attract the life you have for yourself. That's God seeking God. Whether you call it God, the law of attraction, or you wrap it up in some other context. It's not a coincidence. I was reading about Carl Jung. I reference him a lot, right? The Swiss psychologist. It was just right here. Synchronicity. There's some sort of law of synchronicity that as you are behaving, something else is happening in and around the consciousness that is going to align with you somehow. Or you have a moment where it's sort of either an intuition or a deja vu, or this feels like, that's because that's how you attract. Synchronicity. The world is in sync with each other. So when you behave with your spirit and your soul seeks other souls to match your soul. God goes to find God. So when I'm like, I want to be cliche Jeff, and I want the Do You rules to explode, and I want to be able to help and assist and create legacy and have something that my children and my wife can look back on and be proud of me. When I want to build something and establish roots that God can look down and shine bright lights on, as bright as it can be, even if it blinds me. And all that comes with it. All that comes with it. Let's not be ignorant and naive, right? That's why we dream. But my point being, the more that you create this rhythm for yourself, the more you attract the God you're looking for, the life you're looking for, the reality you seek in whatever dimension. I don't put no limits. I don't put no limits when you're trying to access the infinite. And yes, if 9 to 5 is for you and 40 hours a week, there's a beauty to that. And getting your benefits and having something that is established where you think less, in a nice middle somewhere, You can retire comfortably. If that is your choice, my point is it your choice? And let's not knock the system for all these conspiracies. It's just a system that's been trying to evolve for eternities. And if you don't like the system, it's because the majority of us accepted it, got comfortable in it, and just acquiesced to it. And which is what I said in as I reflected and I talked about contemplating around this thought. Most of us don't even come to that realization. Most of us don't question. All we do is release frustration and we vent and we look for a culprit. You are the culprit. At some point, it is your fault. It has to be. Otherwise, I certainly can't help you. Or how is God supposed to lock in on you? Where's your spirit? You outsourced your spirit. You leased your soul to another soul, and you're curious why you can't find stability. Let's get into our black book for the day. Where the chat at? Where the chat at? Where the chat at? All right. I didn't have the right setting on there. Make sure my live chatting is on. Chat away, chat. Here's the black book. We call this the loop ain't loyal. Here's what they won't teach you in school. I'm sure you've learned this if you paid attention to what we talk about here. 95% of what you do every day ain't even you. It's your subconscious running the same loop it's always run on autopilot. Waking up, loop. What you reach for, loop. How you respond when you're stressed, loop. That tone you use when you're tired, loop. And most of the loops, you never wrote them. They were coded by survival, conditioned by school, shaped, and I'm talking about how you also were educated, how you were taught and introduced, shaped by who hurt you, and eventually they got mistaken for your personality. Let's talk brain for a second, no lab coat. Your brain is like a city, and your habits, they are the streets. The more you repeat something, the more paved the street gets. Eventually, it becomes a highway. Fast, easy, familiar. So even when the route is toxic, your brain still sends you that way because it's faster to ride dysfunction than build a new road. This is called neurological efficiency. But when you pair it with emotional memory, your inner archive of pain, triggers, fear, you get loops that feel comfortable, even when they are killing you. Now let's bring it spiritual. You weren't just born to function, you were built to author divine rhythm. Your spirit was never designed to obey default loops. It was built to build systems of remembrance. So when your subconscious loop takes over and you stop listening for divine rhythm, you're not just repeating a habit. You are betraying the assignment. Because the loop don't serve God. It serves the version of you that forgot God. Bottom line, you ain't lazy. You're not undisciplined. You're just possessed by a pattern that got installed without your permission. And until you consciously override it, the results will keep praising the old you and punishing the real one, calling dysfunction just how I am. And if that ain't enough of a consequence, let's get into some of the consequences of inaction when you repeat patterns and habits and routine that have nothing to do with your spirit and your soul and what God asked you to do. You build a life that looks like your past while praying for a future you never patterned. You confuse automation for alignment. You call repetition discipline when it's really disobedience in disguise. You stay loyal to rhythms that carry no covenant. You optimize dysfunction because it's familiar. Worst of all, you live inside a loop you didn't write and wonder why your blessings don't fit. Those are the consequences. Let's get into how we lock daily remembrance around this. Here's what you want to try. Identify your default behaviors and ask, where did this pattern come from? Who built it? Who benefits from it? Practice micro disruptions. Change the order of your day, your tone, your start time, your silence. Replace routines with divine rhythms, responsive to spirit, not system. And then try declaring it daily. God patterned me for authorship. I break every loop that ain't stamped in my heaven. That's how you do that. Now, before we get into our daily phone tap, our audit remix, re-record, daily covenant loop, check that chat. Chat is still manifesting. It's still bubbling. God is still attracting God. Let's start with an audit. Ask yourself this. What loop are you running daily that you never consciously approved? Where did it originate? Was it school, family, trauma, social comparison? Oh, we do a lot of that these days. Then you want to hit them with the remix. The lie. This is just how I operate. The truth. It's just what I've rehearsed. Rehearsed behavior isn't identity, it's residue. And you want to re-record. Let's take some action. Interrupt one loop today. Wake up differently and on time. Don't hit snooze. Speak from rhythm, not reaction. Move like your soul wrote the pattern itself. You weren't born to loop. You were born to reveal. And every day you repeat a rhythm that ain't yours, you insult the God that made you. Break the loop, build the pattern, and never let what you've inherited outrank what you were designed to create. You own it or be owned by it. You either run the system or the system runs you. Change your mind, change your life. I am who I say I am. Do you and stay rich.